Stu and his friends loved going to the lake on the outskirts of their village. The lake was quiet and calm, surrounded by ancient trees whose black branches hung over the water, as if trying to touch the surface. That day, the sky was gray, as if it sensed something ominous. But the boys, as usual, decided to have some fun, running along the shore, throwing stones into the water, and competing to see who could throw the farthest. Stu, Ben, Mike, and Tom were running around, laughing and teasing each other. None of them noticed when Ben suddenly stopped playing along. No one, except Stu. When he turned around, he saw Ben standing right at the edge of the water, frozen in place. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide with fear. Stu tried to shout, but the words stuck in his throat. He saw something dark and slimy wrap around Ben's legs and start pulling him into the water. Ben tried to struggle, but it was no use. Whatever it was dragged him under in an instant. Stu stood frozen, unable to believe what he had seen. He had seen the water spirit. The creature was covered in weeds, with terrifying eyes and long green fingers, dragging Ben into the depths. But his friends saw nothing. When Stu finally screamed, Mike and Tom turned to him in confusion, and then, when Ben disappeared, they panicked. Everyone thought Ben had simply drowned by accident. No one believed Stu when he told them about the water spirit. Adults and friends repeated the same thing. A tragedy, an accident. But every night, Stu couldn't shake the image of that terrible creature. He couldn't sleep, couldn't forget those evil eyes staring up at him from beneath the water. One night, Stu was woken by a strange sound. Through the half-open window, he heard the sound of water splashing. But the house was far from the lake. How was that possible? The splashing grew louder, as if the water was getting closer to his bed. Stu jumped up and turned to see water slowly seeping across the floor. It spread slowly but relentlessly. In the dim moonlight, Stu saw something horrifying. From the corner of the room, as if rising out of lake water, a dark figure appeared, the same figure that had taken his friend. The water spirit was here. Slimy weeds hung from its body, and its formless eyes gleamed with cruel delight. The water spirit's hands stretched out, long fingers reaching towards Stu. The creature hissed and muttered, its speech sounding like the whispering of a swamp. Stu stood paralyzed with fear as the water spirit approached his bed and hissed, "You saw. You're next." Stu's heart pounded, but he couldn't scream, couldn't move. The water spirit drew closer, its hands almost touching him when suddenly, Stu felt cold fingers wrap around his ankle. This was the end. But just as the water spirit was about to grab him, the room went silent. Stu woke up with a start. It was a dream, or a nightmare, but the floor of his room was wet, and on the windowsill there was a trail of water leading back into the forest toward the eerie lake.